Several thousand Latino American military veterans risked their lives fighting America's wars. Many not even full-fledged U.S. citizens, but green card holders hoping to earn their U.S. citizenship by serving in the military. Men like retired U.S. Army combat veteran Mauricio Hernandez. His 160 missions in Afghanistan earned him medals for bravery and an honorable discharge. But not long after he returned home to the U.S., authorities here in San Diego, California, found drugs and a gun in his car one night, for which he would be convicted and sentenced to a year behind bars. Then he was deported to his birthplace, Mexico.
I don't know, man. I see home so close and yet so far away, like I could reach out and touch it. And I can't. Like I could grab my little girl and walk down the beach.
Mauricio's mother, Ana, visits him and his young family here in Tijuana once a week from her home in San Diego, just north of the border. She brought Mauricio here shortly after he was born. Says he was a good kid in school, who escaped their violent, gang-ridden neighborhood, she says, by joining the U.S. Army. And she says she was outraged that after risking his life in Afghanistan, Mauricio could be so swiftly deported.
I am upset. I'm sorry. I am angry. He is only one of the many who fight for our freedom.
Mauricio Hernandez is one of at least 240 deported American military veterans, most of them from Mexico. The cases of 59 of them recently documented in a human rights report called Discharged, Then Discarded, authored by the American Civil Liberties Union, a leading nonprofit human rights watchdog in the United States. Many veterans were kicked out of the U.S. for drug-related crimes considered aggravated felonies. Most assumed they had become naturalized U.S. citizens when they joined the U.S. military and had protections against deportation. Many have serious medical ailments, from diabetes to post-traumatic stress disorder. Ailments, they say, are going untreated because the U.S. government denies them access to U.S. veterans' hospitals north of the border. One such veteran, Jose Solario, needed a lung transplant, but U.S. immigration officials denied him a temporary humanitarian visa that he needed to have the transplant done in a U.S. veterans hospital. And by the time the U.S. government reversed its decision and issued Solario a visa, American doctors said he was too far gone to have surgery. He slipped into a coma and died shortly afterward. Other deported veterans profiled in the ACLU report include U.S. Marine Corps veteran Enrique Salas, who CCTV met at a support group established for deported U.S. veterans here in Tijuana.
From the time I was 10 years old, I dreamt about being a Marine, you know? So.
Why?
I just liked that commercial they had.
The few, the proud, the Marines.
Climbs up the mountain at the very top of the mountain, he places the flag.
Enrique, like other Mexican-American vets, came to the U.S. from Mexico at a young age with his parents. Parents who let Enrique follow his dream to join the Marines.
My parents signed my contract when I was 16. Once I joined the Marine Corps, I mean, like, by what the recruiter told me and everything else, I mean, I was a U.S. citizen, you know?
What did he tell you?
I mean, he says, as soon as you join the Marine Corps, you sign this contract, you know, you're going to take an oath and you become a U.S. citizen.
Enrique served honorably during the First Persian Gulf War in 1991. Around that same period, his younger brother Gilberto followed Enrique into the Marine Corps, but was killed in a training accident shortly thereafter.
I think I have that survivor's remorse. And I think that's been my biggest.
Enrique says he turned to alcohol and drugs to deaden his pain. From a user of drugs, Enrique would later be caught selling them, methamphetamine. In 2004, he was convicted of an aggravated felony and sentenced to 1 year behind bars. When he got out of jail, he says he never again committed another crime. He got a job as a mechanic and dedicated his life, he says, to his children.
So then I continue with my life, you know?
Paying taxes?
Paying taxes every day, every year, you know.
2 years later, in 2006, while returning from a family visit to Tijuana, Enrique says U.S. border agents discovered his felony conviction and detained him in front of one of his young daughters.
When they detained me at the border, she was with me, you know, and it's like they handcuffed me like a common criminal. Like, I mean, I did something 2 years ago. I paid my time. Why would you do this to me, you know?
The American Civil Liberties Union argues that Enrique Salas and other deported veterans like him should be returned immediately to the United States and granted citizenship. Though current U.S. immigration law may make that difficult, says Marguerite Telford of the nonprofit Center for Immigration Studies in Washington, D.C.
They need to apply for citizenship. When they committed their crime, if they'd been citizens, they wouldn't have been deported. We are a nation of laws, and that's what the law says.
Daniel Torres is a deported U.S. Marine who served in Iraq but was discharged and returned to Mexico when it was discovered he was not an American citizen when he joined the Marines, that he had falsified his birth certificate. Today, as a law student in Tijuana, Daniel says his goal is to get deportations overturned by arguing that vets cannot be punished twice. In other words, first imprisoned for their crimes, then deported. What's known in legal terms, he says, as double jeopardy.
These guys, they got arrested, they served their time, they got out, and then they still got deported. So they're facing a double jeopardy. They're facing a double jeopardy. And it's just not fair, it's not right.
The law is the law. And as it stands right now, you have to become a citizen. And, you know, and we make it really easy. It's very easy to do.
The Department of Defense tells CCTV that for veterans, becoming a citizen is simply a matter of downloading readily available forms from a website, and that deported veterans could have prevented being deported had they just filled out citizenship forms, even while they were still serving overseas.
And I think the military is very good about telling people who are serving what the rules are, what the process is. You have to take some responsibility.
But some deported veterans claim that recruiters informed them that they had become instantly naturalized as American citizens when they took their military oath.
I took the oath when I joined the Marine Corps, the oath that every service member takes, you know. I pledged to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. This is basically the same oath that a U.S. citizen takes, right? A naturalized U.S. citizen, right?
Other vets have said they were too emotionally overwhelmed at the time with life in the military, away from their families, or busy fighting in war zones to go online and navigate the process of becoming a U.S. citizen.
There are 17 parts to the application, and the application is 21 pages long.
A lot of these guys, they have mental health issues. They have a lot of emotional problems that stem from their military service, everything from PTSD to drug abuse.
Deported Veterans Supporthouse.org.
Many deported veterans here in Tijuana commiserate with one another here at a nonprofit support center called the Deported Veterans Support House, also known as the Bunker.
We're working with the ACLU.
Founded by deported U.S. Army 82nd Airborne paratrooper Hector Barajas.
A lot of the people that we're working with, deported veterans, are people who served legally in the United States Army or Marine Corps, Navy, and all the way from the Vietnam War to guys that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan that were deported because of some type of criminal conviction after their military service.
Barajas taking calls almost daily, he says, from journalists around the world, often inquiring about his only child living in Los Angeles, Lily.
How often do you get to see her?
Sometimes, the good thing is we have communication via phone and Skype. Okay, love you. Kissy kiss. I was deported in 2004 for a discharge of a firearm in the state of California.
In other words, he fired a gun from a moving car, say police, as a then 25-year-old Hector Barajas out joyriding with friends in Los Angeles back in 2002. He served 2 years in prison and was then deported, learning the hard way that he had never become a citizen automatically just by joining the military.
I thought I was a citizen. Eventually, I did do my homework, and I was not a U.S. citizen. I started the process, but I didn't follow through on it. So citizenship was never pushed. I was never counseled. So I feel, I dropped the ball, and then I have a personal responsibility, but also the military has a personal responsibility as well.
Yeah.
At the age of 72, Andy De Leon is one of the oldest living deported veterans here in Tijuana, a Vietnam vet. He lives alone on the east side of town. He says the only contact he has for the most part with his 9 grandchildren back in the U.S. are these photographs of them on his wall.
This is my bedroom.
Not only has Andy been deported, he says the U.S. government refuses to pay him thousands of dollars, he says, in Social Security benefits he's earned as a taxpayer in the United States over 4 decades.
And I'm an old man, I need my money. I can't find me a job anymore. I'm too old to find a job.
He says the crime he committed back in the day that put him here is drug possession.
They say aggravated felony. I mean, I didn't rob a bank. I didn't blow up a federal building. I didn't kill nobody. But simply possession of drugs, I don't think it's an aggravated felony.
What's your biggest fear?
It's dying here, I have nobody to bury me. Because they just throw me in a hole in the ground and forget. They don't even put a marker there for who died there. They just throw me in a trench and cover me up with dirt. And that's the end of the line, you know. Nobody will ever know where I'm at.
People don't know that the things that I did and other men did catch bad guys, and people didn't think I was bad then. Nobody wanted to deport me then.
To learn more about Mauricio Hernandez, CCTV recently traveled north to San Francisco, California.
He's a very good guy.
To speak with one of Mauricio's fellow trenchmates in Afghanistan, retired U.S. Army veteran Matt Wiseman.
When I heard that Mauricio got deported, I was shocked.
Matt's one of several American-born soldiers who served with Mauricio in Afghanistan and who've written testimonials supporting Mauricio's desire to return to the United States.
I don't think people should lose their citizenship, though, if they've served their country for 5 years because of a nonviolent felony. I don't think that his country served him well in deporting him back to Mexico.
Mauricio is one of thousands of U.S. military veterans diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after witnessing so much carnage and human suffering in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, causing severe emotional suffering among veterans that the U.S. government's own recent report says is widely responsible for the suicides of 20 American veterans per day on average in the United States. 20 suicides per day. Mauricio has attempted suicide twice. And despite what he says is his desperate need for psychological counseling, the United States government recently denied Mauricio's petition for a humanitarian visa to seek treatment in the United States for his PTSD, and for treatment for what he describes as debilitating anger issues that he says followed him home after seeing so much war abroad.
All I still have is anger because there's just so much of it, it's like living in a sandstorm where you can't see your hand in front of your face. And then you have to just find a way, because if you don't find a way, if you don't, then all these people that count on me, if I don't find a way, all these people that count on me, I'm gonna let them down. I'm gonna let them down. I'm gonna let my wife down, my daughter down, my mom down. And I'm a reliable person. I don't like letting people down. You know? I want to be the best husband for my wife, the best father for my daughter, the best son for my mother, the best brother for my brother.
The United States of America has to be responsible for all these men.
She says she finds it unconscionable how the U.S. government can turn its back, she says, on Mauricio and his PTSD that she believes is a direct result of all the killing he was trained to do to defend American interests abroad.
The United States of America trained him to become an assassin. But that assassin is my son. And my son has the right, he earned it, to return to the United States.
Those deported vets whose children remain in the United States say that not being there to watch their kids grow up is in effect a third punishment for their crime after imprisonment and deportation, and perhaps they say it's the cruelest punishment of all. You think about your kids a lot?
Oh, every day.
What do you think about?
Miss them.
You were telling me about your youngest daughter's birthday yesterday, just across the border in San Diego.
It was pretty tough yesterday. My daughter's birthday, you know, I wanted to hug her.
Deported veterans here in Tijuana live off donations dropped off at the bunker and from whatever other jobs they can find around the city. The average weekly wage here is less than $100 a week. Mauricio Hernandez has found some work as a mixed martial arts trainer for troubled youth here in Tijuana, but rarely charges them. And then, of course, there is navigating Mexico's well-known security issues with drug gangs and other criminals on the streets.
After dark, yeah, there's about 80% chance you're going to get robbed.
Just how soon, if ever, any of these deported veterans will make it back to the U.S. remains unclear. Immigration laws in the U.S. will have to change for their deportations to be reversed. Though there was some hope recently when the U.S. government permitted deported vet Daniel Torres to be sworn in as a naturalized U.S. citizen, determining in the end that his only offense of lying about his citizenship in order to join the U.S. Marine Corps does not warrant deportation. In the meantime, other vets here wait. A few years back, Hector Barajas and some of his fellow deported veterans began painting a mural on the Mexican side of the U.S.-Mexico border wall, with the names of many of the veterans deported here, to honor them, says Hector, and for their children to remember them. For all the deported veterans who remain stuck here, like Hector Barajas, Enrique Salas, Andy De Leon, and Mauricio Hernandez, they hope they might get a favorable ruling one day themselves and be returned to the United States for another shot, another chance at life in America.
I just want that shot to prove that I'm worth taking that chance on, that we are worth taking that chance on.